Hello everyone. Let's make sure. Okay. So as you heard, my name is Kirsten Krall. I have been a staff member here at RYLA for 10 years, which sounds crazy at this point. And I actually attended as a conferee, just like you, in 2015. Today, I'll be sharing about my ongoing recovery through a brain injury with post-concussion syndrome, dysautonomia, migraine disease, and how that all has affected my perspective. I'm 26 now, but I sustained the concussion as a senior in high school when I collapsed towards the end of an indoor track race due to dehydration. It caused a multitude of symptoms and put me out of school for 7 weeks. When I was able to re-enter, I had to alternate between full and half days with a lot of accommodations in place. I have yet to be able to attend college and continue to experience the symptoms of my injury every day while still requiring therapy intervention. So, as a 17-year-old, you begin to envision a future with a mere idea of what you'd like to do and who you want to be. For me, that meant becoming a veterinarian and continuing my running career. At that point, I had chosen a college that offered me a balance of both, and the dream was taking form until it wasn't. You see, in our visions lie unexpected outcomes, and January 14th, 2017 was the day that completely shifted my reality. But perceiving it as good or bad rested in the power of my own eyes. Today, I hope to teach you what it means to live, instead of simply being alive. I'm going to play a 12-minute video detailing parts of my recovery as well as some educational awareness, because it would feel disingenuous to tell you about what I have experienced without explaining why, and because I think it's important to have the knowledge in regards to concussion management. There will be a PDF link available to you via QR code in your schedule next to my name, in case you wanted to learn more about what I talked about today. So I'm going to turn this off. Great. When I opened my eyes, after laying blacked out for a couple of seconds,
Everything hurts.
I entered an unfamiliar world, cloaked in fake familiarity.
I'd asked you if you could stand up, and you thought you totally could, and you're like, yeah, I don't feel too bad. Doctor had to catch you, and if he didn't catch you, you would have fallen down.
The day I hit my head, my friends lost me.
I have survived 100% of my worst days. So much of this journey is on my own.
You know, we're all on a path of not knowing, and it just happens to be that my path has a lot of not knowing and uncertainty, and I just have to go with it.
And life is so tragically beautiful and amazing, and words can't really be used to describe certain things.
I don't understand why your level of joy after success has to correlate to how big that success was.
1.28 miles in 26 minutes, and that is the farthest and the longest I have walked in 4 years. Growth comes when you're uncomfortable, and I was uncomfortable when I was dizzy. You know, sometimes it's so incredibly difficult to be able to see my dreams clearly. It's so incredibly difficult to think that they will ever become my reality.
Reading for 8 minutes is such an easy thing for most people to do.
I've got a lot of dreams, man, and I've got a lot of plans, and I'm going to do them. For over 7 years, I've experienced a constant stream of symptoms and limitations. This meant I could give up and let it consume me, or shift my perspective and learn to build upon this new foundation. I chose the latter.
Trying to live life with this brain and body has been quite difficult. I experience a wide range of symptoms, from a constant headache, dizziness, fatigue, low stimuli tolerance, and much more. It took me 6 years to have enough tolerance to experience any sort of life outside of my house and doctor's appointments. I have to use a range of management tools to do them, and still experience discomfort, but I feel very grateful because I became so familiar with isolation. Things like walking, standing, talking, reading, car rides, lights, sounds, along with many others, provoke an increase in symptoms. Early on, the high level of symptoms and sensitivities kept me from barely leaving my room. To understand the complexities of recovery and give a voice to those with invisible injuries, I'd like to define a concussion. As a disclaimer, though, this following section is not medical advice. Nothing I say here replaces a medical professional, so please use at your own discretion. A concussion is a form of traumatic brain injury. It is the result of an acceleration and deceleration of the brain that causes injury to the neurons and disruption to the electrical signals, which leads to symptoms. It takes the brain about 3 to 6 weeks to fully recover metabolically, but symptoms can persist longer than that. When one or more symptoms last beyond 3 months, it is known as post-concussion syndrome, or persistent post-concussive symptoms, aka PCS. Symptoms can fall under one or all of these 7 categories. Autonomic, which controls processes in your body that you don't think about, like heart rate and blood pressure. Headache. Vestibular, which is your balance system that provides your brain with information of where you are in space. Cervical. Oculomotor, which is how your eyes work together, track an object, and perceive depth. Emotional, and cognitive. Dysfunctions across these areas can affect one's ability to know where they are in space, feel steady, see precisely, remain upright, manage stress, read, talk, and honestly anything and everything you can think of. Remember, this is your brain. It controls all sensations. In order to regain proper functioning after a brain injury, the brain undergoes neuroplasticity. This is when it tries to rewire itself by building new neural pathways, using other pathways to bypass broken connections, and/or making new neurons. Neuroplasticity simply means the brain is changing. Think sprouting and rerouting. While it happens automatically, like when learning something new, we can enact these changes by performing repetitive actions, just like you would by lifting weights to build muscle. Concussion rehab is dependent on which areas are affected and can be in combination of more than one therapy, like vision and vestibular therapy, as well as autonomic retraining. Another big part of recovery, though, is learning how to regulate your nervous system, because after brain injury, your nervous system can become more sensitive, so incorporating things like deep breathing can be very helpful. The range of practitioners that could be used to direct recovery can be a sports medicine doctor, physical therapist, a functional neurologist, but ultimately, it will take a team. When you're looking for a provider, it's imperative that this practitioner is up to date on concussion protocol, because far too many people have been misled, misunderstood, and unfortunately misdiagnosed. A trained physician or certified athletic trainer should be able to diagnose a concussion by mechanism of injury, presence of symptoms, and tests like eye tracking, balancing, memory, and reaction time. An urgent care or ER will be able to rule out life-threatening risks immediately after a head injury. But you should get in with a concussion literate provider as soon as you can, because they will set you on track for following a concussion protocol. One should go back to the ER if there are any sudden changes in symptoms, like a severe increase in headache, vision changes, or slurred speech. If you suspect a concussion during sport, sit out. Symptoms may not occur right away, and after injury, your brain enters an energy deficit that makes you susceptible to a second concussion, which increases the probability for prolonged recovery and, in rare cases, can be fatal. Remember, your health is way more important than any sport, so please make sure you listen to your body and take the time needed to recover. Going back, a term that we covered earlier that's good to remember is dysautonomia. It's used to describe a dysfunction within the autonomic nervous system. It doesn't just happen after brain injury, though, and can also be triggered by a virus or underlying genetic conditions like EDS. Another diagnosis you heard me mention earlier is migraine disease. It's very stigmatized and is not the same as a headache. It is a complex neurological disease with the root cause believed to be genetics. It causes sensitization of the nervous system, and there are over 30 associated symptoms occurring at different phases of an attack, which can be extremely debilitating. You hear me saying migraine without an S because migraines can suggest a series of isolated incidents rather than a chronic condition. People who experience migraine disease experience migraine attacks. Like many conditions, migraine lies on a spectrum. Some may experience a few attacks a year, while others may have chronic or daily attacks. While there is no cure, you can go from chronic to episodic and even into remission. Migraine disease, like vestibular dysfunction and dysautonomia, can have different types of diagnoses, as you see here, with 3PD in vestibular dysfunction and POTS under dysautonomia. Treatments for these conditions can range from medications to lifestyle changes. Treatments for me depend on what my body needs, can tolerate, and what our primary focus is. I work with a team in order to cover all of the dysfunctions, do many different forms of rehab, and use a combination of medications. I help manage these conditions with many tools: trekking poles for walking, compression socks for blood pooling, a weighted blanket for car rides and sleeping, which helps with dizziness, pacing activities throughout the day, and much more. Taking care of my body has turned into a full-time job, and every day consists of working towards my recovery. Maybe I do more of a calculated rehab, like vestibular and vision therapy. Or heart rate-based training on the stationary bike. A lot of times, it's the things that go unmeasured, the constant check-ins, messages of safety. You'd think there'd be time off, but the only space that feels to exist measures the weeks between Botox appointments or infusions. I am constantly putting myself into the space of discomfort in the name of recovery and simply living. But I've been learning how to react differently towards the symptoms and uncovering my subconscious fears. Pain reprocessing therapy and somatic tracking, as it's called. Managing these symptoms requires a lot of tools, as you saw, but I've become pretty good at being prepared. Always carrying my bag with medications, Gammacore, which I do 6 times a day, and Cephaly at least once. Nonetheless, having a dynamic disability can become exhausting and overwhelming, as it's never ending. So, I try to find the balance. I'd like to say that many disabilities are invisible, inconsistent, and unpredictable. I'd also like to point out that the disability community is one that anyone can join, which is why advocacy and supportive accessibility is very important. Disability isn't a bad word, and it doesn't automatically equate with being an inspiration. Those qualities don't come with a diagnosis. It's just how one chooses to live.
While recovery is a lot of mindset and hard work, it's also luck and privilege. I want to recognize that I am privileged to have access to the medical care and family friend support that I do. And lastly, I want you to remember that every brain injury, illness, and recovery is different from one another. What may work for someone may not help another, and specific symptoms can express themselves differently in each person. Just how everyone's path in life leaves their own unique footprint.
Thank you. We are going to move into a true or false activity, but I appreciate you guys watching and taking the time to settle your attention on that video I made. You are going to see 10 statements regarding concussion, and we'll have about 20 to 30 seconds to decide your response. I encourage you to work with the people around you. Don't be afraid to be wrong. That's actually where we learn the most. So you can do a thumbs up for true and a thumbs down for false. So this first question is, an MRI is needed to diagnose a concussion. What do we think? Maybe make them a little bit higher. Great, okay. I see pretty much a lot of thumbs down, and the answer is false. So an MRI only picks up on significant damage, and a concussion is a functional injury. So no, you cannot see concussions on an MRI. Number 2, you can continue to recover from concussion symptoms even after many years. I see trues, I see a lot of trues, and the answer is true. So with the right interventions, improvements in symptoms can be possible even after several years. It actually used to be believed that you couldn't improve from a concussion after 2 years. Even when I first got my concussion in 2017, my doctor was a little bit hesitant to be like, I'm not sure what improvement you'll see after 2 years, because a lot of times it starts to slow down. But things change, science evolves, we learn a lot more. So number 3. You do not need to lose consciousness to sustain a concussion. True or false? Trues, lots of trues. Great. The answer is true. So only about 10% of people actually experience a loss of consciousness. Number 4. Concussions are treated with strict rest. Falses. Some people are, there we go, see some falses. The answer is false. So it was actually believed that concussions were treated by strict rest. The protocol was sit in a dark room, rest, wait until your symptoms disappear. Over time, we realized that was not helpful and improvement was not being made. So now a combination of resources are used to treat concussions, like you saw before, like vestibular therapy, vision therapy. That prolonged dark room and strict rest is outdated and an inappropriate treatment plan. And what they find now is that actually in the first 48 hours, you do want to limit some physical and cognitive activity, but after that, there are some studies that show introducing some light aerobic activity like gentle walking, if it is tolerable to your symptoms, actually improves the recovery process. So number 5. Neck injuries, which is known as whiplash, and concussions can mimic each other. I see some trues, I see some falses. The answer is false. Oh, wait, I went back. The answer is true. Symptoms of dizziness can come from the neck because we have something called proprioception. You know, we all have proprioception, and there are some nerves in our neck that allows us to know where we are in space. So sometimes symptoms of dizziness can be coming from your neck. If you experience a concussion, you will also likely experience whiplash because whiplash occurs around 4.5 G's of force, while concussion occurs from around 70 to 160 G's of force. Number 6, you do not need a direct hit to get a concussion. Lots of confident truths out here. Let's see. The answer is true. So any sort of acceleration and deceleration of the brain may result in a concussion. Number 7, symptoms occur directly after injury, and once your symptoms are resolved, your concussion is too. Wow, very confident. False. The answer is false. So while symptoms may occur directly after injury, it can actually take up to 48 hours for them to be present. So if you hit your head and you're feeling fine, still choose to sit out from your sport or something that may risk another concussion, because again, symptoms may not occur right away. And it takes the brain about 3 to 6 weeks to recover metabolically, regardless of if symptoms are present or not. So if you get a concussion, you might feel great a week later. 2 weeks later, you might feel awesome. But what's happening in our brain on an energy standpoint is not yet back to baseline. So you always want to give yourself some time to properly recover. Number 8, you do not need to wake someone every 30 minutes during the night after a concussion. Some iffies. Take a guess. What do we think? I see some trues. I see some maybes. I don't know. This one is true. So this actually was another thing that a lot of people did. They thought you got a concussion or a brain injury, one and the same, and you would have to wake up that person every 30 minutes during the night to make sure that they were still alive, to make sure that they were okay. Now we know that sleep after a head injury is actually really, really important. But it's also important to monitor the concussed person for any signs of emergency. So it's okay to check on someone while they're sleeping to make sure that nothing bad has happened and there's no signs of emergency. So number 9, you must avoid all screens after injury. See some falses. What do we think? Take a guess. Some falses. Some people are iffy. Raise those hands high. What do we think? Okay. The answer is false. So it is important to limit a lot of stimulation and cognitive effort for the first 48 hours, but everything afterwards is all threshold based. Meaning, if you can tolerate being on your screen without increasing your symptoms over, let's say, 2 points on a 10-point scale, then it's okay. So say you have a level 5 headache and you go on your phone, don't go on your phone longer than it would take for you to maybe reach a level 7 or 8 headache. Because at that point, you now want to take a break, you want to rest, give your brain time to recover. But everything is threshold based. That's down to exercise, it's cognitive effort, everything, not just screens. And lastly, number 10, helmets do not prevent concussions. Some falses, some trues. What do we think here? This one is true. So a concussion, like I mentioned before, is the acceleration and deceleration of your brain inside your skull. So a helmet is not going to prevent your brain from moving within your skull, but it will 100% prevent or at least reduce the risk of skull fracture and more serious brain injury and damage. So if you like to skateboard or you like to ride your bikes, snowboard, ski, wear your helmet because 100% it can save your life. And that is it. There's just only 10 questions here. So I'm going to X this out. Okay, let me just get this settled in here. Sorry. Okay. There we go. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay. So you guys did awesome. Like we said in the beginning, I'll open the floor up for some questions at the end, so just save them in your head, jot them down if you need to, but there will be time for that. So, on the theme of true or false, one of the obvious truths in my life is that it flipped upside down. It wasn't until 2 years in, when I had to stop vestibular and neurooptometric rehab due to getting significantly worse, that I actually realized the severity. We dove into migraine treatment, and I also got prism lenses to help with my vision. What I had thought would be 8 weeks of therapy and then right back to normal life, back to college, back to running, has actually turned into 8+ years and counting, which is why I learned to celebrate the seemingly small wins along the way. Before I could ride 45 minutes on the stationary bike, I could only ride for 2. And before I could read a book for 15 to 20 minutes, I could only read for 30 seconds. And before I could read for 30 seconds, I couldn't read at all. Being able to watch a 40-minute show or go on a 15-minute walk without being completely incapacitated by it are huge, huge wins. I used to be unable to tolerate a hug or someone sitting on the bed next to me because of the extreme dizziness I felt from it. I couldn't be handed something or make eye contact without getting incredibly lightheaded and feeling like I was going to pass out. There were times when a 15-minute conversation with a friend would knock me down for days. And there were days where I could barely even speak to my parents, let alone get out of bed. I couldn't even walk into a store for the first 5 years. But if I had let all of these defeats hold me down, I wouldn't have kept showing up. I needed to celebrate all of the tiny wins, like reading for those 30 seconds, or simply walking out of my room and onto the deck or into the yard. Since then, I've definitely seen improvement, even though nearly every aspect and activity of my life is still dependent on what I can tolerate in the moment. But that's just life with a dynamic disability. You know, I still struggle to go more than 45 minutes in the car as a passenger without needing a break, socialize how I would like to, and even speak to you all today without feeling a flare in symptoms. But I'm getting me back. And this part always makes me cry. And it's the most beautiful thing, you know? You see, sometimes just getting to where you want to be takes a while. And sometimes it feels near impossible, but if you keep showing up, you might just see progress, no matter how slow that may be. And even if you have a long way to go, the now is still worth celebrating. I've realized this journey for me is basically a large paint-by-number picture, and all I have to do is keep picking up my paintbrush. But I also see how this painting has changed, and how the way I present it has changed. Throughout the years, I've gotten so used to living with these symptoms, hiding them behind a smile, and viewing it with a positive perspective, that it can widen the opportunity of misunderstanding. Living with an invisible illness and injury is tough. It's really tough. There's a really odd balance between advocacy and transparency on one side, and a dismissal of others' assumptions on the other side. There's a side that wants to showcase everything that cannot be seen, and a side that is simply tired of fighting to be seen. Tired of receiving comments like, "You look great, you're doing so well," when that can feel so far from the truth. As the years go on, I learn more and more how to grapple with it all. How to grapple with being misunderstood, feeling defensive, guilty. But I do believe it's a common experience across all people, to one extent or another. Ultimately, our lives are singularly our own, but infinite pieces of them are shared across the world. We are the only ones who know the exact meaning behind each letter we write. But if we share it, people can connect in their own ways. And that is one of the challenging beauties, because being vulnerable means deconstructing our outer layers to show the cracks and bruises beneath. By showing our true story, it can light someone else's path and let the lonely feel less alone. In turn, perhaps our own loneliness will begin to fade as well. But something else must change too. We must not assume the reality of others based on their appearance or what they are doing. By assuming, we immediately take the pen out of their hand and begin to write their story that we know nothing about. Something else we don't know much about, despite our confidence, is the future. The uncertainties of life are very prevalent. I've had to learn how to be acquainted with the unknown and walk hand in hand with change, especially because my recovery is not linear. My perspective is not excluded in this theme of change. One of the more recent ones is actually learning how to coexist with my body. Since I'm at a point in recovery where I'm experiencing more life things versus only doctor's appointments and symptoms and my bedroom, I've really had to focus on listening to my body, figuring out how to live with the limitations, testing the boundaries, and trying not to let a single narrative write my future. I'd be lying if I didn't say that there were periods where I found myself in a lot of doubt. Moments of, this will be my life forever. I use the words if, not when. Like, if I get better, if I can do that. But I was using it in a way where it was putting a cap on possibilities because it felt incredibly difficult to see a future of less symptoms. Up until about 3 years ago, I didn't feel as if I could achieve certain things without being completely symptom-free. This is where learning how to live with the symptoms and accepting the current reality comes in. But even still, I still face doubts and fears just like anyone else. Working through these moments, though, is important, and it involves recognizing those fear thoughts. Then you can change the narrative into something that feels more supportive. So saying something like, even though I'm experiencing these doubts and difficulties right now, I know things can change, is way better than, I will never get through this, this is my forever. The mindset of why can't I helps reinforce this positive shift. We're given these limitless minds. Why would we put a definitive end on an infinite line? Once we feel that crack of hope and slowly see evidence of change, the strength to believe gets that much stronger. My belief is that hope can exist independently. You can have everything pinned against you, yet still have faith in a way out. You can choose to create your own light while in a pit of darkness, and that gives you all the power. It doesn't mean hope is easy. It definitely doesn't mean it's easy. But it sure is possible. And it's equally okay for things to be scary or filled with doubt. Let's think about setting dreams, right? So when you set goals that reach outside of your comfort zone, everything is terrifying. Everything feels too big, too threatening, too much of a drop if you are to fall. But I don't think people who reach those heights do it unafraid. They do it with fright coursing through their veins and doubts pushing to make their way to the front of the crowded mind. They take those feelings as a right of way, as a gift only given to those who dared. They set forth on a path where they've never been before, because at the end of the day, those who try never actually fail. What you begin to realize is each step along the way is an experience you wouldn't have had you not dared to seek discomfort. We harness this power to create our own truth and change our reality and our ability to sit in the seat of awareness, to be the gatekeeper and the watcher of our own thoughts. But there are so many emotions in this dance of life. I think we often try to keep our mind occupied and stimulated because sometimes we're afraid to feel certain emotions or sensations. But there's room for everything. For sadness, grief, anxiety, frustration, pain, anger. Noticing them is where we create a level of safety and cultivate growth. You see, our mind is like our house. We don't always have a say in who knocks on the door, but we do have some power in how they pass through. If we were to look at emotions as if they were characters or people, we might begin to view their presence in our home, our mind, as something we can guide. For example, let's say doubt and negativity show up and they walk right in through the front door. I thank them for showing up and explore what sent them an invitation. Why are they here? But then show them the back door to leave. Sometimes they linger, but I try not to grip onto their presence or let their occupancy in my home feel like an invasion, because I know that they are just trying to help. I ask confidence to stay for tea, absorbing their unbreakable energy. I invite curiosity for dinner, listening intently to the intricate flow of ideas, allowing my mind space to expand. I hug sadness and dance with happiness. I breathe with frustration and anger and speak to fear. Ultimately, if I take the seat of awareness, I'm able to allow all of these emotions and sensations to exist. And the ones I put more focus on, the more they show up in my life. Another important key to indulging in this beauty of life is presence. But many times we miss the present moment in its most authentic space. We spend the now thinking about the future or replaying the past. When we do that, we forget to admire the life that's unfolding around us. What could have been crisp memories become faded into the background. You see, the past can try to guide us, and the future can try to drive us. But only in the present moment can our existence be nurtured. You know, when asked, what's your biggest regret prior to your injury? My answer would be not recognizing the worth of a moment before it became a memory. My younger self didn't live each day like it was her last. She always thought that there would be a next time, that there would be a next season, a next year, a next race, but there wasn't. And if I had known my ability to do things would be taken away, and that I wouldn't be able to experience life without layers and layers of symptoms and limitations, I would have held on to the sensations of what it felt like to be living, not just alive. I would have held on to what it felt like to be in a car and have the music playing, the windows down, my hair blowing. I would have held on to what it felt like to be dancing to my favorite song with my friends. I mean, life is so precious. And in order to do that now, I've had to learn a few things. I learned that life is painted by the difference of beauty and pain, but it is also everything in between. The magic of the journey is uncovered in the many different textures and colors, so I've come to embrace my story as the masterpiece it is, and you should too. I learned that joy isn't based on external factors, and neither is gratitude. There's something we must recognize and cultivate by choice, not circumstance. In order to grow, I had to find peace within the pain and comfort within the unknown. I had to learn the true power of positivity and the humbling act of patience, which allows me to persevere like flowers that grow through the thickest of concrete. I learned to dance on whatever floor may be beneath me, because life in itself is simply just a dance. And when you dance, you don't try to get to a place in the room, you dance to enjoy the tune. I also learned to give myself permission to feel lost. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but I truly encourage you to embrace feeling lost, embrace not knowing, because it's an opportunity to find yourself and create plans that wouldn't have existed in other realities. I learned to own my own truth and reshape my idea of identity. Turns out, I am not just a label in a color-coordinated filing system. Even though it can be easy to feel as if I'm defined by or obligated to these tabs, I see that I am more than that. I am more than who I was as just a runner. You know, I know that these labels now are meant to be evolutionary, but it's also okay to grieve the death of certain identities. Part of me still grieves my past. Gosh, I would say that this journey has not been easy, but among the rough weather of ever-changing skies, I hold so much gratitude. I am in awe of its raw beauty. with rains of uncertainty, glistening with drops of hope, thunders of new identities and burials of old ones. Wind-cleared fields now lay for seeds of redesigned dreams to be planted. But my ability to see these rainbows and dance with the storm is no different than yours. I am not an anomaly. We all harness this power to live in positivity. So, the following is a story I once heard, and then a poem that ties all of these topics together. But I do want to do just a brief check-in. How are we feeling? Are we good? Are we feeling sleepy? Do we need to stand up and do a few breaths together? Yeah, we think that's a good idea? Okay, so let's stand up. Everyone stand up. Let's absorb what we've just talked about. I'll hold this so you can hear me. Absorb, take a big stretch. If you want to join me in something called the breath of joy, I don't know how much space you have next to you. You can just use your little hands. So it'll be 3 consecutive inhales and then 1 long exhale. So you could go inhale, arms come forward, and then side, forward, and then you exhale. So I can demonstrate once. Ready? So let's do a few of those together if you like. Get some blood flowing, get some oxygen back to your brain. Ready? So inhale. Exhale. Let's do a few more. Keep going. Once more. Awesome. Maybe a little wiggle, what else your body needs to feel a little bit awake. A bit more speaking left, and then we'll go into the Q&A. You ready? Whenever you're ready, we can sit back down. Great. Awesome. So, this following is a story that I once heard, then a poem that ties all this together. So, this is a story of little Grasshopper and his master in a temple a long time ago. Grasshopper had to be trained in the deep parts of Buddhism. During training, the master took little Grasshopper to the back of a temple to a room which was usually kept locked and asked Grasshopper what he saw. Grasshopper said, "I see a pool." "But what else do you see?" said master. "But don't get too close." Grasshopper slowly edged towards the pool. His eyes widened. He said, "I see bones in the bottom of the pool." But Grasshopper also saw a plank of wood stretching from one end of the pool to the other. The master explained that that is not water, but concentrated acid, and those bones are from little novices like him who fell in. "In 7 days," said the master, "you will have to walk across that plank as part of the test." He then brought Grasshopper outside to the courtyard where there was another plank of wood, exactly the same length, width, and thickness as the one over the pool, but this one was suspended 2 feet above the ground on 2 bricks. Grasshopper began practicing, and after just half a day, he could run across that plank. He could do it blindfolded and backwards and even dance across it. After 7 days, the master brought him back into the room with the plank suspended above the pool of acid and told him to walk. Grasshopper could see the bones on the bottom, and as he walked, he wasn't as steady as he was in the courtyard. His knees began to shake a bit, and then he began to sway, and you know what happened? I'm going to tell you later, because in the meantime, I'm going to share my poem. So I want to ask you who you are, but I'm afraid this question wouldn't take us far. We are born to feel as if we need a title. We grow up being asked what we want to be and are expected to say anything except, "I want to just be me." A doctor, a writer, a teacher, an artist, a one-word answer is what society expects. But what if I told you the possibilities were limitless? You see, we are not solely defined by the job we choose to pursue. It's like society wrote us a deadline and told us when the definition of who we are is due. But who we are is composed of a million things. It's like within us is a universe and all that it brings. It's unaligned, undefined, and most importantly, unconfined throughout all of mankind. Perhaps it's the thoughts we think, both consciously and unconsciously, and our response to our environment as it's forever changing, both horrendously and beautifully, or our journeys through the unexpected experiences and the way we live our life, our expressions through honesty, empathy, and vulnerability, or the impact we have on those around us. Maybe it's the things that go undiscussed, like our scars that tell our stories of our battles through both familiar and untouched territories. But maybe, just maybe, it's the title of a book yet to be assigned and a storyline not yet defined. Maybe we are everything intertwined. But there are many people who believe they don't have a choice in life, and they couldn't be farther from the truth. We do indeed live in an uncontrollable world where tomorrow is not guaranteed. But within the unpredictable, our perspective is controllable. It's how we choose to see the world when suddenly flooded with anger and hate. It's our attitude when we wake and our ability to open-mindedly communicate, to agree to disagree, yet continue to fight for what's right, to smile in the darkness and continue to hope that one day we will find the light, to be grateful when we have nothing, and patient when we want something. Circumstances of the day may not be what we assume, but we can choose the rhythm of our sway when the wind beckons in the opposite way. This ability to realize a choice gives us a voice within the unheard and a will that cannot be deterred. I don't know if you know this, but it's proven that thought alone can alter the brain, because neurons that fire together wire together. So it's up to you to decide how you want to change. We must become the best versions of ourselves rather than always trying to be better than someone else. I reckon we must be rich in life, but this does not live in money status. We must be rich with feelings and experience. It's about how much you laughed and loved, and all the times you failed but rose above. It's all the days you chose to heal from the things you did not want to feel, and the endless lessons you once learned that now tell you where to turn. It's how much of the world you welcomed within, and how much to the world you breathlessly chose to give. For all of that, it's priceless. Listen, life isn't easy. It will knock you down and leave you bleeding, but you can choose to give up or choose to keep on believing. Yet we all experience life in a different way. So while I say you have an option to choose your happiness, for many that task is simply the utmost hardest. Depression and anxiety can quietly creep in silence, which is why I want to shed a light on those fighting mental illness. Although I cannot take away the discomfort you feel, I know that there is infinite happiness, love, and light already within you. Sometimes it just gets buried beneath the weight of what you're going through. Your symptoms may manifest in secret, but I know they are real, for you are not invisible and you are not alone. And you are more than a diagnosis on a piece of paper that makes you feel like being loved is conditional. I promise you, we all deserve love. It's a fact written in stone, so don't count yourself out or belittle your light. Don't make yourself smaller because someone said you're too bright. And to those who try to dim their own flame, you are worthy of space, you matter, and the world with you in it is surely much brighter. Listen, life can be so short, yet so vast. So we must find our why. The reason behind our words and the cause the wind beneath our wings as we try to fly. This is living with intention instead of living just to die. But unfortunately, not many people are living while they're alive. And to their grave, they carry regret of all the things they didn't do because they chose to allow their what-ifs and doubts become a threat and let life slip right through. So, why do you exist? If you search for a purpose, would that be a guide for something you can provide, or is it a never-ending mission with nothing external to find? For maybe the meaning of life has always been just to be, but you need to be the one that decides what that exactly means. Our power is hidden within those limitless confines. There are no real fine lines of guidelines telling you who or how or why to be. You see, that word me is cultivated from creating your own reality. And together we can make a difference. But even as one, you are far from powerless. Get this. One seed can grow one flower, but from that flower can grow multiple seeds, and those multiple seeds can grow into multiple flowers. It's as simple as cause and effect, and before you know it, your impact will triple. Just how one drop in the ocean is all it takes to create a ripple. You must see that our space is constantly filled by the energy we unknowingly release. If we remember to disregard the negativity and share the compassion and kindness of loving peace, we can move together collectively. You see, we all have our differences. Society puts emphasis on what we believe in, our gender orientation, and the color of our skin. But there are a million things that beautifully shape us into individuals. If we respect them, they do not form division. But if we perfect them, we allow society to make the decision of how we are envisioned. Being different brings unmatched textures into existence. So I want you to embrace your individuality, to take down your mask and face reality. But I want you to put down your paintbrush as well, to stop painting judgment on others, for it's not up to you to determine their colors. It's scary to be you, but you are the only you, and I swear that is true. So continue to chase after the dreams that were denied. Walk through the world with your mind open wide, and always, always, always harness your authentic truth with pride. So, prior to reading that poem, I left off asking you if you knew what happened to little Grasshopper as he struggled to walk across that plank. Well, he fell in. And you know what the master did? He laughed. Grasshopper began splashing around, but realized he wasn't burning. And that's when the master said, "Little Grasshopper, it's not acid. It's just water. We just threw the bones in for special effects, that's all." So, what pushed Grasshopper in? Fear. Fear pushed him in. Let me say that again. Fear. Fear pushed little Grasshopper in. For if he knew it was just water below him, he would have ran across it, just as he did in the courtyard. I mean, he could have danced across it. You see, in life, it's our fears. It's the what-ifs and doubts that keep us from reaching our full potential. But we mustn't let it. We mustn't let our struggles or society keep us confined. We shouldn't wait for life to unwind. We have to let go and exist undefined. And if we go looking for something to find, I really hope we start with what's inside. So, will you choose to see a pool of water? Or choose to see a pool of acid? Will you tell yourself tomorrow, or next time, or next year, or tell yourself today? Because if not now, then when? Will you choose to rely on others to make a difference, or choose to be the difference? Because if not you, then who? Will you walk your own path and look back on the footsteps you tracked with pride? Or will you continue to your last day living a lie? And what will you think the next time someone asks? Actually, let me ask. Who are you? Thank you. You're fine, you're fine. You can cheer, it's okay. Okay, so I'm gonna get a sip of water.